And we're live.
We're
Woo.
live.
Woo.
All right,
Uh,
so we agreed to talk about intention today.
yep, that's what we're talking about. We should get
Yeah,
this thing going. Shit. Okay,
at, at least as an initial subject.
we're doing this, aren't we? Every time I'm like, we're in this situation where we're just live. uh, okay, I'm in this space. It's all good. Yeah, welcome back, welcome back. Do you say that? We can say that. Come on. We gotta like say some kind of thing to get the ball rolling.
Yo, you're saying plenty, buddy. You're saying plenty.
Too much. All right, I get the point. So you two have been contacting me this today, was it? And said you had some wild thing to share with me. Can you kind of share with our listeners what that wild thing was? Kind of, and it came out of a conversation we had early in the week, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, well, we had we were talking about, as we do sometimes, how this conscious caravan and how basically where do we want to take this whole thing, and we're always trying to look at where is our energy going, what is the what is the things that will excite us. We don't look at the best way to do it, we look at what's the most fun, interesting, exciting way to do it, because I believe that's how the universe creates. It doesn't create through effort and strain, it creates through creativity, playfulness, excitement, and so on.
Hmm.
And
But
so we were talking to, yeah.
now that's something that you put a lot of emphasis on. And so when we're talking about this kind of future stuff, it wasn't so much about like what would give money or what's the right thing to do or what we should do
Yeah,
or like if it or whatever. It was like what gives like where is there the energy in that
yeah,
thing? Where is there energy, and is it fun kind of thing? Do we
yeah,
do we feel that? Uh, yeah.
yeah. And I think that's a big thing for spiritual people, because I think one of the one of the pleasures of being less conscious or being a materialist is that you can do things for money, and you want to earn money, so the money can motivate you, right? But as you become more spiritual, it's hard for money to motivate you, because money isn't really that interesting, because money is always a means to something else. So if you're working for money, you're working to get money so that you could do something that's fun. So you're already two steps away from getting what you actually want, right?
Hmm.
So as a spiritual person, you can be like, well, I don't want to work, I don't want to do anything. What am I supposed to do? I don't feel attracted to doing anything. I understand that I have to, and I'll make myself, but I don't feel moved to do it. And that's what I felt for a long time when it came to like the job market. And I think for that, it's interesting to what made it click for me is that, well, I'm not here for money. Money is a side effect of energy. If you
Hmm.
if you work with energy, if you give energy to people, then energy comes back, and that'll be in the form of relations, interactions. It can be all kinds of things, and it can also be money, because it's money as a type of energy, right?
Yeah, it is a form of energy, and we
Yeah,
we often we often forget that
yeah,
it's.
yeah.
We look at
Money
the
is a
coin.
very
Kind of,
money is a very materialistic way of symbolizing energy, right? Time and
hmm.
energy and so on.
It's very measurable as well, which
Yeah,
for some reason works really well with human beings. Things that
yeah.
we can measure. So yeah.
But so what I was gonna tell you about was that that some of the goals we had made last Monday were already coming true Tuesday and Wednesday,
Hmm.
because the goals we were, yeah.
Can I just say difference between goal and intention, or would you say it's the same thing, or kind of some people have certain ideas about goals and
Yeah.
yeah. Do you see there's an overlap? There's differences, or
How
what's
would you
the?
how would you describe it? Because
I
I
see that
understand what you mean, that there's a difference.
I see that there's an overlap
Right.
in the two because, like, when you write down a goal um, that you have, for example, make $1 million or something. I don't know,
Right.
or meditate every day or whatever it is, or yeah. There's that, and there's also when you make an like. I think what we were doing it was more making an intention actually to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I guess, yeah. For me, it was about what kind of exciting things could we put into our future.
Hmm.
And someone might be like, well, that's just a goal. Well, language sort of language can be, you can call it a goal, but for me, the important emphasis was, this is not something I want to happen, something I can tick off a list. This is just
Yeah.
something I think is exciting and I would love to go towards. And I'm not necessarily, okay, I'm getting something now, because when you're calling it an intention. So what I would say, a
Hmm.
goal, maybe we could say that a goal is something you're going to work towards, you're going to make it happen.
Hmm.
An
To tick off
intention,
the list, kind of like
right?
a
And an
cross off.
intention
Yeah.
might be more something that you send a message to the universe, to life, and you're like, I would like this to happen. I'm open to this to happen.
Yeah.
You know, I would love for the people, the situations, the resources to come to me, and for me to feel energy, and a desire to do the things that are needed to make it happen.
Hmm.
So it's sort of you're co-creating with the universe, and you're not really going to use effort unless, and it's possible sometimes you get a lot of energy. Like last time when we were recording video episodes, after recording the first one, you had a lot of energy, so we recorded some more afterwards. So that was you putting energy into something because you felt like putting some energy into something. So there can be work, but the work is joyful, right? Because it comes from
Hmm.
energy. So and for spiritual people, I think that's this creating with energy, creating with intention, creating along with the universe. I think that's an important switch, an important shift, because creating through effort is not very the more spiritual you become, the more sensitive you become to sort of forcing and a kind of a violence and a kind of, both on yourself and on life. You become sensitive to how it feels to force things through. Like you're a salesman, you're calling people up, you're like, buy my shit, whatever. That starts to feel bad as you become more sensitive, and um, you become more spiritual, and you start to understand yourself and other people more, because you realize it's a kind of violence to force things on others. Now I know there
Hmm.
are spiritual people who manage to sell in very different energies, and I respect, with respect to that. Um, yeah.
Would you say that this intention then, like, if you would say that what's the opposite to forcing something, would you say that
Mm.
is like to trust, like you like, for example, we put this out there into the universe, or put this intention out there, like where is the energy? For us it was like energy to kind of collaborate or kind of work with other people who are also part of communities, spiritual communities, and or personal growth, no, more spiritual communities, um,
Yeah.
and see if we're able to kind of get them to come on board with the podcast and like do an episode together. And kind of the intention was to then like all grow different communities and bring them together, kind of thing, you could say.
Yeah.
So that was the intention, and it wasn't like we're going to force that to happen, but we're going to trust this to unfold. We're not sure how it's going to unfold or who is
Yeah.
going to be the person that's going to come into that space, but we're just going to trust in the universe, or trust in whatever is going on to for that to happen. And yeah, and some magic happened, right? That's that's where we're coming to.
Yeah, we our first goal was like, oh, it would be nice to have a website where we could, or not goal. Our first intention or wish was that we had a place we could throw our stuff up, and people would be able to react to the episode, be able to comment, and we could reply to them, because we get a lot of energy from people, we get a lot of energy from community, and we want to interact with our community, and we want our community to sort of interact with each other. And after our conversations, you talked about making a YouTube channel. So I threw up a YouTube channel, not thinking much more about that. And on the first, the video episode we put up, we had one of our longtime listeners make a comment there. And I went in to comment. And by the way, we're going to set it up so you can comment as well, Jonathan. But
Yeah.
when I saw the message, I was like, damn, that it's just 4 or 5 days ago, we would love to have this kind of interaction, and it's already happened, and none of us had even thought about the fact that it could happen this way, and none of us had used any effort. It wasn't a calculated little ego is gonna climb up the mountain and get the treasure.
The rock
This
up the
just
hill.
this
Yeah.
just kind of happened, and then today you were like, oh, by the way, can we put this on YouTube, the video part, because we are also recording. We're always recording video, although it's webcam, right? And I'm like, duh, of course. Why don't I? I mean, that would be perfect for YouTube, because our older stuff doesn't have video, not all of it anyway. And so it's like, oh yeah, so we can put that on YouTube, and it's more stuff where people can interact with us. And none of it was planned. There was no like grueling planning, execution, strategy. It all just came from something that we wish would be possible, because would give us energy. We would be able to share it with others. And then it just kind of happened on its own. And you can be like, well, it's not a bit stupid, guys, because obviously you could do YouTube. Obviously, it's very, very obvious. You could use a video, whatever. That's true. But we didn't have to sit there and revolve our brains trying to figure these things out. We just had a wish, and then we had trust, and the rest came effortlessly and through joyful action, right? And
Yeah.
that's the big thing.
That's important. Joyful action, because you still
Joyful action.
put the action in doing it and creating it and everything like that. But the part of it was joyful in the process of it coming together, which
Right.
is the playful part, the kind of less effort, more kind of just trusting in the spontaneity of, that kind of comes up, or this energy that comes up, and then following that. And yeah. And what else happened this week, Torin?
Well, another thing we talked about is we would love to have some more guests on our podcast, and we would love if some of these guests had some communities, so that they also brought some more listeners in, some more people that were interested, because finding spiritual people can be difficult. And so if we found some guests that were part of communities that were already spiritual, that would be a great way to find more people. And we looked into like, oh, could we advertise? What could we do to spread out the podcast? And we kind of agreed that wasn't really interesting for us. But to go and find interesting people and talk to them, and then get their communities involved and all this stuff, that's very interesting for us, because again, we like people. We don't want to throw X amount of cash on some kind of Facebook advertising, and then some people get pulled in or whatever, and the whole thing is automatic, and it doesn't have anything with people to do. And there's no energy there. It might work, but we aren't entrepreneurs because we want to do something where we just get it to work somehow. We're entrepreneurs because we want to do stuff that gives us energy, right? If we weren't, we might as well just do a normal 9 to 5, because it's much more secure in many other ways, right?
Yeah.
It's a way to work with energy.
So we put that intention out there that we want to work with other communities, and like
Yeah.
find the energy was there to kind of meet other interesting spiritual people or and leaders of communities, and then just out of somewhere you met
Yeah.
this very spiritual person that you kind of talked very highly about.
Yeah. I met this very spiritual woman who probably is probably going to be on the podcast. We're going to have we're going to have to talk about that. And she had a community, and we never talked about it because I'm not out there trying to push anyone um, to spread the word or whatever. But she just informed me, oh yeah, she talked with the community. She'd shared our podcast, and they'd come to check it and all that stuff. And that all happened just effortlessly, joyfully, just out of me, just random occurrences. I randomly came into a call. It's one of my completely new contacts on LinkedIn, a woman named Susie. Uh, she was one of my other friends on LinkedIn had talked to her and recommended me to her. So I had nothing to do with this. Like I was not involved in any way. I didn't even know who she was. So through this totally magical connection, she put up a video and she's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna have a conversation with my friend Lorraine on on LinkedIn, like 12:30 in the evening." And I was sitting there in the evening. I was like, "Well, I'd like to listen to that." And then I went on there and they talked, and I wrote some comments, and then I talked to both Susie and Lorraine afterwards, um, and they were very spiritual people, and that also came from an intention because, like you talked about once, you kind of had a block on, where are all the spiritual people? Maybe there aren't any, and then you opened up for it, and then people came into your life, and
mm,
I realized talking to you, well, I had the same block. So just a few weeks ago, I was like, okay, I'm going to open up my mind to the fact that, of course, there are other spiritual people out there. Of
mm,
course, there are people who know things. Of course, there are people I can mirror myself in. And I met these, incredibly spiritual women at the same time, a short time after, just saying to myself, of course, spiritual women are out there, spiritual men are out there. I'm the one who's closing off to it
mm. So you
because I
also
have a block.
opened up through an intention, through
Right,
like that opening
right.
of the intention that the spiritual people out there that
And originally, you came into my life a short time after I had asked the universe that I would like to meet someone I could do my work together with, because I could do all this alone, but I don't want to. Because for me, the most fun life for me is to be able to share this journey with someone. Because you can
it's
call me extroverted I don't know why, but that's just how I feel. Like I have more fun with others, right?
yeah.
So every
We
step,
definitely have a lot of fun doing this content
yeah,
together, and there's a lot of energy in it, and it's pretty incredible if you kind of sit with this for a second, just say like we both put this out there, this intention of meeting somebody spiritual, and you from your side it came from like a doing work together. For me, it was just like an openness and intention to meet people who are on the path, or
yeah,
um, and then bam, we meet, and like there's chemistry or energy there, and now we're doing this like some months later. It's 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 like if you sit with that for a second, it's pretty incredible that like can happen, and if that can happen for us, it can happen for anyone out there who's kind of had maybe doubts or thoughts about like where am I going in my life, what is even important to me, what is like, I mean, maybe they feel closed or feel like they're not meeting the right people or whatever it is, I don't know. But just holding on to that intention and having, I would put the word faith in there, like some
right,
faith, trust, something that they're holding on to that actually will happen. So the intention is there, then like there's like a faith in that it will happen, it will work out in some way. It might not be the most obvious way because usually it's not.
right,
Usually life uh, takes many different turns, And then we get to this point at some point in our life, and holy shit, like I put this intention out there many years ago, or maybe
Yeah.
months ago, or days ago, or whatever it is, and now I'm living that reality. Now
Yeah.
I'm in this like literal reality that I've put the intention out there to, and that's a really important to kind of note that holding the trust or holding the faith on whatever it is that you put your intention onto.
Yeah.
Um, can I say one other thing with that is that like because the way I can't actually explain how this happens, but as human beings, for some reason, when you put a number onto things, for some reason it kind of like it our the attraction like something attracts us to that. So for an example, like when we were putting some of those intentions down on paper, we are like, what was the thing by the end of the year or something? It was like, well, it was something intention, and then we put like a date, like the 12th month, 2023 or something.
Oh yeah.
And that can be a really powerful thing to kind of put on paper or say out loud. Both can be really helpful. And for some reason, it really can improve the chance of or the chance, but us attracting that thing and having that reality. Yeah,
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
you didn't know that.
I didn't know it.
Most goals or intentions I've ever created in my life, I'm now living through
Mm.
this, and so it's pretty incredible, right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, just the fact that you can write down something, put the intention, hold the faith and trust in at some point it's going to happen, and then take joyful action towards that, and then be in this reality. It's like, whoa, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for there are people out there listening who are like laughing when we say all this because they've known it for many years, right? And then there are people who are just new to it, who are like, is it really true? Can it really be? But every part of this journey we've had together has been before we even met. It was based on intentions. Like I asked life for certain things, and they just happened.
Hmm.
And sometimes they came from the outside. Sometimes I felt like a certain action arose in me. I just felt like doing it. It was like when I contacted you, I still am not sure why I did that, but it just kind of happened.
Hmm.
And then
But
the
that was a
collaboration came.
spontaneous kind of thing that came
Yeah.
to you, right? The
Yeah.
joyful action of like, okay, this came up, and then you wrote those words, and I was also like, who is this guy? Like, it's super
This guy.
random, but I was in this open like space, so I was just like, yeah, well, let's see where this goes.
Yeah.
Um, and this can be like relevant to anyone, with anything in your life, whatever it is that you are feeling blocked by, or that is important to you to kind of like bring into your life, whether it's social parts, whether it's your personal spiritual side, like work related, and anything at all. Literally, whatever you want, you can just. Well, that's too easy to say, right? but it's there is a lot of power in this when you have trust in it as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that one spiritual concept that most people have to realize, and it can be a bit harsh to realize at first, but your life is almost always a reflection of you. So the people you are meeting, it's not 90, it's not 100%, but 99% of your circumstances are a reflection of how you act and what you believe. So if the wrong people, if you're finding the wrong people in your life, it's probably because one thing here is having an intention for something to happen. That's one side of it. But the other side is to have blocks. And that is, if you don't believe something can happen, it's certainly not going to happen. And if it does happen, you'll probably sabotage it because you don't believe it. So a part of getting what you want can also be to recognize that you have a blockage on something, and to release that block and open yourself up to it. So one thing
Okay.
is, yeah,
Here's a question for you then. How, like, if somebody wants to release a block,
right.
what do they do to do that? To,
Well,
or what,
I think it's
what?
very
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting because you can only have a block if you're holding on to it. So if you have a block, you have to look at the block, and then you have to look at emotionally and intellectually, why am I holding on to this, right? When it came to, like, when I was when I was blocked off from meeting spiritual people, a part of that was a fear that there would be someone more spiritual than me out there, and then I would meet them. I would be like, oh, I'm nobody, I'm nothing. So
Hmm.
actually, I was blocked because I was afraid, and so I had
How
to.
does it feel to say that out loud?
It feels. How does it feel? Well, it's just the truth, right?
Yeah, but yeah.
Uh, so um, so I realized that I was holding on to that, and that's not always the case. Often we might feel that we're not worthy of something or something like that, but life is, I would say, majorly a reflection of your state of mind, and your state of mind decides what you notice in your life and what you even allow in your life. So if you're looking for the perfect friend and they come along, you're either not going to see them, or you're gonna not going to meet them, or you're going to sabotage the relationship if you don't believe that you can have a good friend. And it's the same with jobs, partners. It's the same with anything.
Mm. So there's kind of like
So
a self worth part in that. That's what I hear, at least. Like if you're worthy of the friends or worthy of the thing or believe
yeah,
you
I
can
think that's
have
a big
that.
one.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah. And what about if I was like, I'm not worthy of good friends, for example. So then therefore when a good friend comes in, like I'm not able to let them in. What would you what would you do then?
Well, what will you do? What do you think?
I love that.
Well, yeah,
Caravan does this thing all the time, and if you haven't noticed this yet, when I ask a question about some things, not everything, then he would just put it back onto me. It's great.
that's because you're pretending that I have the answers and you don't. I'm just trying to get you out of the.
You're doing it consciously. You can ask yourself, am I worthy of this friendship? Am I worthy of um, this job or this relationship or this spiritual path or whatever it is in your life, and just kind of come into yourself, and maybe the first thing will be no, maybe it'll be yes.
What do you
Um,
do if it says no?
it will very rarely say no. It's because the mind might say no, or the ego, right?
Yeah.
Because there's all these stories that kind of come up when if you've got hurt from a friendship, or if you got hurt from a relationship, or there's some pain, and that's where the blockage is, right? And so it's about asking your intuition or awareness, like the same question, and feeling into what arises, or noticing what arises first, and trusting in that. And that's what I would say. And also just notice for yourself what comes up when you what are like notice where are those blockages. Is there a time in my life where I have felt pain from that thing that I'm asking for, and then can I give space for that to be able to release from that? Can I give space to kind of go into that feeling, go into that emotion, that thought? Where does it come from? What happens? where am I feeling that right now? Just um, not run away, but go into it. Go deeper and deeper into it until something happens within you that you feel either a lot of emotion, a flood of feelings, and whether that's sadness or anger, whatever it is, and just keep allowing it, keep being with it, being with that feeling, being with present to that. And the more you do that, the more you allow that to be there, the stronger it might get. And to a point, it might get stronger and stronger and stronger to the point where uh, it starts to release from you, and that can just be a big thing to be with, right? And sometimes it's hard to do that alone, and therefore being in the presence of you, Tobian, or me, or other people to hold that space can be really powerful. It can be really cathartic to kind of uh, to hold the space for somebody to release that trauma or that pain or that blockage or whatever it is that's going on. And that's what I would say you could do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Definitely. I had a friend of mine, I was asking her like what is your ideal partner look like, whatever. And she said, I don't think my ideal partner would want me right now. And
Whoa.
that's because you got that old thing like would you date yourself, whatever. Very interesting question because it says a lot about self-worth. But
Mm.
but you can look at it from two perspectives. You can say, oh well, she has bad self-worth. She is something to heal, and there's some truth to that. But there's also another interesting perspective, and that is that she might not be who she wants to be right now.
Mm.
Maybe you need to change how you're showing up in your life so that you feel worthy of what you actually want, because you're failing your own standards, right? So, and that's not something to overdo, because it's a good thing to be compassionate about yourself, and you are always worthy no matter what, because you're always worthy of redemption. You're never branded for life or anything. But if there's an opening for you to look at a way you could be living more honestly, more authentically, and more in line with your values, well, that also creates self-worth, and that also removes blocks that allows you to open up to your intentions, because you start to see that you can actually become the person that you want to be, and that gives you a self-worth and a worthiness that
Mm.
allows you to accept the things that are coming into your life. Now, of course, you can't overdo this and be perfectionistic, but there's an opening there, which for some people can be useful to work
Yeah,
on.
definitely. What comes to me is like to also hold this stuff lightly as well. Like that nobody's, like you said, nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to get this right all the
Right.
time. And we all have a past of stuff that's happened to us.
Yeah.
And so just to kind of be human about it and be genuine, and, it's okay to that it doesn't work sometimes and that it does other times. And this kind of keep going back into yourself, into your awareness, into the trust. And yeah, we talk about intention, but I would say that there's a very, very important part of trust in that intention. So if you don't trust that the intention is going to be there, then there's less kind of energy going into that, you could say. Um, I know that's a big thing you also kind of have given space for with us as well, too, man. Is like this trust in me, in my spiritual path, and my kind of like truth, you could say. And that's something I'm super grateful for, because you're really kind of aware and clear when I'm not doing
Yeah.
it, so, or when I'm avoiding it or whatever it is, um, and help me see that, and give space for me to to trust in my truth and just kind of speak from that place. So thank
Yeah,
you.
we're all speaking from the same place. So when people are like, when people try to exalt me, put me on a pedestal, it's a problem because I'm not what the thing I'm talking from is not different from the thing they're talking from. So it's important. Everyone has to trust themselves, because if they don't, they'll wound themselves. And if you trust yourself and you're not, wherever you are on the path, you don't have anything more than you have. So doubting yourself is not going to help you understanding more than you know. It's just going to destroy whatever understanding you actually have. So no matter where you find yourself, you may as well just trust yourself. And then if you do something wrong, you'll learn from it. You don't gain anything from doubting yourself, because I meet so many spiritual people whose spirituality is maybe here, which is a high amount, and then their self trust is half of that or 20% of that. And so they go around asking other people for what they already know themselves, and they get confused, and they read books and they hear talks and go from one thought to another, and they have no clarity, no stability, no steadiness, because they aren't actually asking themselves and trusting themselves and speaking from their own truth and living their own truth. And that's like having money that you're afraid to use. Then it's the same as not having them. It's like having muscles, but then not trusting that they can actually lift, not testing them.
Hmm.
So it's important for me to give people their own authority back, because it's not, I don't have anything that you don't have or that anyone else has. They might need a little bit of time to click into it. They might need to learn how to jiggle that into place. But we all come from the same universal mind. And when I speak from that place, it's not different from what the person who's hearing has. We're just taking turns at um, putting that on, so to speak.
If you're somebody who's never heard of this concept of universal mind, or we're all speaking from the same place, you said that as well earlier.
Yeah.
And if you have heard of this and want to just get more clarity around, like, knowing if you're speaking from that place or not,
Right.
what would you, how would you guide that person? How would you kind of, or what do you do? You could say,
What do I do?
what do you do, but also what do you give others? Because you said you hold that for others, hold that. Um, I forgot the exact word, but you said something about helping others kind of trust in that space.
I would say it's kind of like a Google search, because when you search for something on Google, a lot of results come up and they're not useful. And then you use your ability to discern or to observe, and you look at what do I actually want here. You go through the search results until you find something which is what you want. And speaking from the universal mind or acting from it is the same process, because if I'm in a situation, I'm going to do something. Maybe a thought comes up. Now, a thought, that's not the universal mind, so that's not a search result that I want. Maybe some fear comes up. Fear, not the universal mind. I don't need that. Maybe there is some selfishness comes up, that I want something to happen in this situation. And there's a feeling or thought that says, oh, force your will through and make it happen. Well, that's not what I'm looking for either. So through seeing all this, what I don't want, suddenly I feel something in me feels there's something that feels right, and I can tell that this action it's in harmony with what's going on, and it comes from a deeper place inside me. It's not an emotion, it's not a thought, it's not painful, it's not impulsive. It doesn't come like an impulse. I don't feel compelled to do it. There's just something that blossoms inside me, and then I allow that to happen, or I speak from that place. So it's just at first it's just a process of elimination and saying not this, not this, not this, not this, not this, not this. Oh, here it is. And that process just straight up going to tell you that's going to take some time at first. That's just how that is. And it's actually the same process when we look at how do I become more authentic. It's the same process again. Like working on being more truthfully yourself. Well, how do you find that out? Well, that's also a process of looking at, okay, thought comes up. Is that what I want to say? No, that's not really what I want to say. So once again, not this, not this, not this, not this. And then suddenly there's something, oh, this is me. This almost erupts in a sort of joyful spring. And it feels like me. Oh, that's authentic, right? So there's a lot in spirituality, that comes back to what we talked about earlier. In spirituality, there's a lot of trusting yourself. Because how do you know, because a lot of people ask us this, right? They're like, well, how do I know if it's my intuition? How do I know if I'm authentic, right? Well, you just know. There's no other answer to that than you just know. You have to observe all the objects in your consciousness. What is their quality? And then you start to see, well, this is painful. This is unintelligent. This is impulsive. This is irrelevant.
Reactive.
But this is reactive. And then you're like, but this comes like a spring breeze from my being. Oh, this is the good shit. I'm going to be in alignment with that. So trusting your own authority, and something that you and me talk about sometimes a lot, is be willing to wait, be patient, be silent. Because when we're working with people, or I don't really work with people right now, but when I'm with people and I want to help them, there's a lot of being silent usually, and just waiting and creating a space for them and just waiting and seeing if is there something to say, maybe not. But in that silence, I open a space for them, which is already healing their energy, healing their state of mind. Sometimes it can heal their bodies, their trauma as well. That just kind of happens. I don't know how that works, but
is it you or the universal energy healing the person?
All I can do is open a space, and then the universe takes care of the rest. It doesn't really have anything to do with me because I'm not a healer. So it's not like I'm not doing anything, but I can be the conduit through which it happens. That's opening up to the universal mind, and the only way you get there is just by looking at what isn't it, trusting your own observation, and being very patient. Because especially at the beginning, both with intuition and with authentic action and speaking, it can take days, weeks, it could take months before you get something really real, something that is truly you, because the layers of falseness go so deep. You probably you were, when you were 3 or 4 years old, that's probably where you were stopped from being authentic. So the layers of falseness are incredibly deep, so it can take time, but no one has ever failed once they started. So just keep digging into it, and just keep discerning with your own eyes. Is this me? Is this something else? Is this the right quality?
So what I'm hearing from what you're saying, there's a lot of awareness in this, a lot of kind of observation of self, observation of thoughts, of feelings, of kind of where is this? Is this it? Is this it? Kind of going deeper and deeper into knowing yourself, really, to be able to know the difference between, a thought, a past thing, a reactive thing, a selfish thing, whatever it is, to this universal mind, this spring of joyful kind of something that kind of comes up into you, and then just and then you know that it's there.
But I would qualify that.
Yeah.
I would qualify that further, because the way you say it, it makes it sound like that what I said could have been described as a sort of mental process. So I just want to.
It's not at all, though. Would you say that?
I just want to make sure that people don't think that it's a mental process. It's kind of like, it's like if you've bought a pack of strawberries and you're picking up the strawberries one by one to see if this is Is it a clean, healthy strawberry, or is there something wrong with it?
Yeah.
You stand there, you clean your strawberries. You take the strawberry up, you look at it, and then you clean it, move it on, whatever. That whole process happens without any thinking, because you just see directly: is this strawberry good or is it bad?
Hmm.
Can we use it or can we not? And that's the same process whenever you observe yourself internally. Um, there's no judgment involved. There's no thinking or evaluating or nothing. It's just like with the strawberries. You just
See.
look and then you get a sense, and that sense is correct. And then you see, okay, and that's that. So it's because when you said what you just said, I realized what I said it can sound very mental, like, oh, blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah. There's no intellectual
Part
process
of
in
it
it.
at all. Yeah.
It's pure seeing, it's pure spirituality.
I love that. Pure seeing, pure spirituality. That's awesome. I'm gonna remember that one.
Yeah.
Can I say that was a beautiful way of sharing what it is. Yet
Yeah, you
again,
love those metaphors, don't you?
no, I love I love the clarity you have around this, and it can only be such clarity by a lot of uh, you going into yourself and like understanding this stuff very very clearly to be able to teach. I wouldn't say teach, but like to explain it or share it in this way. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's another thing, is that anyone on the spiritual path, on the conscious authentic path, every minute you spend working on this is a minute you learn how to help others as well. You don't even need to have an intention. The very fact that you're setting yourself in order, it allows you to set other people in order. You can help them. And if
Hmm.
you're not the type to help anyone actively, you can just be silent with them and that'll help them. So anything you do for yourself is also available to do with others, either explicitly or silently.
Because you can see more, or your energy maybe rises, or like kind of yeah. The deeper work you do on yourself, the more kind of you're able to be there for others.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I definitely can see that in the work that I do as well.
Yeah.
The like the more I work on myself, the deeper I go in my own work, in my own flaws and things, and also just like the space of awareness, the more clearer it becomes in other people as well, in the people that come
Yeah.
and see me, and just in general, I guess, which is really interesting. I've got a question for you, Zoe. Maybe it's a question, just like it, maybe not even a question, right? So I've been kind of like um, contemplating this like unborn Buddha mind you talk about sometimes.
Oh boy.
It's not a big one at all.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, so it's just something that kind of had arisen in me, and I just want to like kind of give space for that to see, you know, also if people listening here, can they do they have that experience or not or whatever. So when I meditate, right, and when I get in this space, sometimes I'm not even meditating. It's just an awareness kind of space, right? Um, what kind of comes up with me is this kind of like this flood of energy, or flood of kind of like it usually comes up from my toes and just like, and it's this sensation. How would you describe that? It's basically just like it's an energy that kind of vibrates in my body, basically.
Mm.
And sometimes I'm like, like a feeling of being in the unborn, or like the universal kind of vibration or something, or is that just
Right.
something I'm imagining because it's just this sensation, buzzing feeling in me?
Right.
And because it's interesting, because it's the same feeling I get when I ask intuitively questions to the universal mind, or to myself, like, and it's the same when I get like a yes or a no. The yes or the no comes from the same vibration or same feeling as I get when I'm in this, when I'm meditating, and this kind of rises up in me. How would you kind of, yeah, what does that, does it mean anything, or is that kind of, how would you describe that what is that?
Well, I want to start by, I mean, it sounds like you're describing what can be called Kundalini, right? Traditions, different enlightenment traditions describe these things in all kinds of different ways, right? Rising energy and all this stuff. Personally, I would say with stuff like this, you should intuitively let it be whatever it is for you. And if just let be what it is and understand that on your own terms. Don't you don't need to go looking for an explanation. And and I'll kind of cut a little bit sharply here with the Zen thing. Is that anything you feel is not really that important. If you can sense it, see it, hear it, think it, feel it, then it's not really spiritual. Because
Say
the
it again. Say
unborn,
it again. If you can sense it, feel it, see it.
the spiritual is truly spiritual. It's not part of the world. And the unborn is called the unborn because it is unborn. It doesn't have a form. So when you're in the unborn, there is no particular sign of the unborn. That may be the only real sign.
Geez, my mind just doesn't get that at all. But that's great.
Right, but that's your
Disappointing.
mind can't get it because the unborn. If your mind could get it, then it would have turned the unborn into something it could get.
A form.
Yeah, the unborn is the unborn is that which comes before your mind tries to understand. So it predates the conceptual mind.
That's why we can't be in it. Well, not that we can't. Just that where there's this, the mind gets in the way of experiencing that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Would you even call it experiencing? What would you call it? Like being in it? Like
Well, when
being
you're,
unborn?
as we talked about, this is getting really deep, but as we talked about on our walking trip when I was visiting your place, that when you are in the unborn, which is one of the words we call for the state of Zen, or whatever spiritual tradition you're following, the state of real meditation, when you are in that state, there's no experiences anymore, because the duality of I am experiencing disappears. So because there's no I and there's no experience.
There's no me.
Yeah. So I usually, the way I explain it is that if you have a tea cup, you have a cup of tea and you have a sugar cube. So when you're in the normal state, then the tea and the sugar cube are separate. They're two different things. And so the tea can look at the sugar cube, and the sugar cube can look at the tea, and they can be aware of each other. And they're like, I'm sugar, you're tea, I'm tea, you're sugar. There's two of them. And in the same way, when you feel sad, you say, I am sad. And then you mean that there's me, and then there's sadness, right? But if we put the sugar cube into the tea and then we swirl it around enough, the sugar dissolves into the tea. So now the tea and the sugar are now one. However, the tea tastes of sugar and the sugar tastes of tea. So it's not the same as before. The duality has disappeared, but only because the two things became one. They merged together. So what that means is that when you are in a state of meditation, you and the world become one, and but the world feels like you and you feel like the world. So the only real, when you're truly in contact with it, and you don't have to be truly in contact with it to practice, because practice is also what leads you towards it. But when you have a spiritual experience, you feel that the world and you is one. They're just interconnected. You feel the whole thing is swirled together, and you can feel other people, and you can feel other things. They're you, but they're not you, and it's you're you, but you're also them. Whatever you look at the same time you look at it, you also see that it's also you, right? So since the unborn has no form, when you are in the unborn, you also have no I. When you have no I, then there's no world. And so mind and environment merge and become one. And that's also the state of enlightenment. When that becomes a permanent state, from practice to permanent, then you permanently experience this merging of mind and environment. And then you no longer say I, and well, you still say it because language requires you to do it, but you no longer feel that you and the world are separate. You feel that whenever you look in the world, there's you, and whenever you look in yourself, there's the world. And that's because the universal mind, or unconscious mind, which you are not conscious of, unconscious mind, in enlightenment, you become conscious of the unconscious. You become conscious of the universal mind. And the universal mind is called universal because it's the whole universe. So when you become conscious of the universal mind, then you fill up the whole universe. Every particle is you. Because as science tells us, as we know now, is that everything in the universe is energy. There is no such thing as, nothing is dead. Even a stone, a rock is a kind of energy. So when
that's what when you're in that, it's you're a part of that stone, a part of that everything,
right?
Whatever it
in
is.
Sun, they say every rock has a heartbeat, and that's not a literal thing, but you can feel the rock is vibrating with the same life that you have. So every spiritual experience, every time you hit the unborn, so to speak, and when you become enlightened, those are all degrees of magnitude of that sensation. But you don't have to feel that way all the time. There are a million different practices, and the practice itself will lead to that place over time, usually by getting rid of thinking. Because thinking is required for the duality delusion. So in other words, if I never have a thought if I never have an I thought, then I'm going to just roll into the universe automatically, because there's no separation. I have to continuously have thoughts about, I like this, I don't like that, I like those, I don't like you, I'm blah, blah. I have all these value judgments say, I think something about this. So I and it. So the fastest method of enlightenment has always been just through whatever practice, minimize thinking. Because without thinking, there's no protection from the universal mind. Thinking is what holds the universe out. By saying I and it, you're like, nope. But if there's no thinking, then you cannot hold it out for very long. And then you just kind of broop. Just it becomes
go into the
yeah, exactly.
What a piece of gold or treasure you just shared with me and everyone listening in. Thank you, Torben.
My pleasure. We got a little derailed from the intention thing, but
that's totally fine. For anyone else with me right now, like, that doesn't matter at all when you hear this. This is like this is the straight to the source, straight to the heart, to the inner everything. I mean, this is really what life, at least how I see it more and more these days. This is really what life is about.
Yeah.
This, like, intention, you can say, to be in this state. Yeah, be in the universe or the unborn or whatever you want to call it. And the closer, like, we move towards that, maybe. And the interesting, when I'm saying moving towards, I'm like, I think I'm getting further away. So it's like kind of
Yeah.
moving backwards. You can say.
Yeah.
um, how close are you to that enlightenment?
One thought away.
One thought away. Amazing. Are we going to leave on that high note? I think that could be a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's probably it for today, I think.
I like how casual you're saying that. You just like kind of shared this like great treasure, and then you're just like, and that's it for me today.
Enough for today.
Come on, let's just sit with this. This is like for a lot of people, this could be a life-changing thing. To also start being in the unborn, to be in that universal mind.
Yeah.
To even know that it's like the clarity in the direction to that place, you could say as well. That's
Yeah.
like, I mean, that's huge. Yeah.
And if you hear it and you don't understand it, then I want you to know that that is the perfect place. Then you are exactly where you need to be. That is it.
Yeah.
You don't need to move from there. That's enough.
Amazing. Yeah. Do you want to say anything to our listeners, to the people who have come this far with us,
To the homies,
to the community, to our community, to our community of people?
Well, we're continuously trying to find ways to meet more people, talk to more interesting spiritual people who are early in their path, late in their path, wherever we find them. And we're just gonna keep on making things where we can interact with you guys and find ways to bridge the gap between us and other conscious people, try to bring them together. And I think for me, and I sort of feel the same from Jonathan sometimes, is the spirituality I'm selling, and by selling I mean metaphorically, the spirituality I'm pushing is a little different than what I see from other people. And that is, my spirituality is just pure essence. There's no spirits or cards or crystals or anything, and that's all. That stuff is fine, but it's not your original nature. So what I'm kind of bringing in, and what I think Jonathan is bringing in, we're bringing in the stuff that works. That's what interests us, the stuff that's essential, the stuff that changes you, and not so much all the very interesting stuff where you have to believe all kinds of stuff and spirits and channels and mediums and gods, and all this stuff is people can get a little bit lost in it sometimes. I think I would like to bring some focus back to the pure Zen, where it's like, you're going to be put in a state of Zen, in a state of mind where you can live your life harmoniously and you can have a good life and you can be good to yourself and good to others. For me, that's spirituality, not so much these side tracks of very interesting things, but not always so relevant and not always so pertinent to the person's real spiritual growth. That's what I would say.
So you could say that what we're kind of sharing and talking about and experiencing in our, now every time I say experience, I'm like, I'm not experiencing, but being in our own life is this true nature, a true source of like spirituality or meditation, whatever, like, and going straight to the heart of it, you could say, to the
Yeah. Really
essence.
just going into the Buddha mind and staying there. That's my spiritual approach.
Hmm.
And I would like to see more of that because I see a lot of other things and
You
I
know,
don't always see,
It'd
good
be
outcomes.
interesting is just like to hear from people if they resonate with this stuff, if they have had these experiences in their life or are experiencing them right now. Now I notice every time I say experience, I'm like, that's not the right. But just like if you resonate with this conversation or these talks we're having, and what's your view, what's your kind of perspective, and can you see this kind of being a part of your life, and how does that look like? Just we're just really interested to kind of get people together, really, and learn from each other, and know who is listening, and kind of bridge the gap, you could say. So
And we've truly gone over time now, Jonathan.
yeah,
So
and a way to do that is you can just like leave a comment or get in contact with Torbjørn or I, and just get in touch, reach out, and we'd love to have a conversation or a bit of back and forth. And yeah, so
yeah,
thanks for listening, and good night or good day for everyone. Yeah,
we
see you on
will
the trail.
see you on the trail.